Hello, friend. Good evening. Tonight, I'm taking you to a time where you were never born to survive. A time when the world was ruled by plagues, when punishment was entertainment, and comfort existed only in fairy tales. The nights you saw in movies, the royal dances, the golden plates, and the glitter of candlelight, forget them all, because tonight, you're about to hear the version they never showed you. This was the real Middle Ages, where every morning was a battle and every breath could be your last. If you enjoy traveling through the dark corners of history with me, then give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? It gives me great joy to hear stories from every corner of the world. Now, dim the light a little, let the fan spin softly, and quietly lie down on one side of your bed. Close your eyes and lose yourself with me in that mysterious age where life was short, pain was ordinary, and survival itself was an art.
The Awakening. Morning in the Mud. Hello again, traveler. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath. Now imagine the sound of a distant bell echoing through the fog, deep, metallic, and merciless. That's your alarm clock. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1325. The first thing you notice isn't the cold, it's the smell. A damp, earthy stench like wet hay and something rotting underneath it. That's your bed. A straw mattress, half rotten, alive with tiny guests, fleas, mites, maybe a mouse if you're lucky. There's no linen, no pillow, and no sense of dignity. Just a rough wool blanket, stiff with last winter's grime, heavy as regret. You try to stretch, and your back cracks like old wood. You're 22 years old, middle-aged by medieval standards. Every joint in your body already negotiates with pain. Your home is one room made of wood, mud, and hope that's been rained on too many times. The roof leaks, the floor squelches, and that warm shape beside you, that's not a Gog, it's your brother. In this world, privacy doesn't exist. You, your parents, your siblings, and maybe a chicken or two all share the same air. The morning light filters through the cracks in the wall, painting stripes of gray across the dirt floor. The air is so cold it burns your lungs, but the fire went out hours ago, and firewood isn't free. You pull on yesterday's clothes, which are also last week's clothes and last month's clothes. Wool, rough enough to peel your skin, but it keeps out the wind, sort of. You step outside, and the world greets you with silence and mud. Every step makes a soft, sucking sound, as if the earth itself doesn't want to let you go. Your village is small, a cluster of thatched huts huddled together like beggars against the wind. There's no road, only a track where carts have worn grooves through the muck. Smoke curls lazily from a few chimneys, and somewhere a rooster crows, late as always. You look toward the church at the far end of the village. Its bell still tolls, summoning souls to prayer before work. Religion isn't a weekend thing here. It's survival. Every breath, every cough, every harvest depends on the mercy of a God who often seems too busy to answer. You feel your stomach growl. Breakfast, if you can call it that, waits inside. A wooden bowl of cold pottage, a mix of grains and peas cooked yesterday, reheated today, and likely eaten again tomorrow. It tastes like sadness and ash. You eat it anyway, because hunger is patient and always returns. Your day's work begins before the sun climbs high. If you're lucky, you own a patch of land to till. If not, you work someone else's field for a few scraps of coin or bread. Your hands are cracked, your nails black with soil, but this is the rhythm of your world. Eat, work, pray, repeat. No one dreams of escape. Dreams are for nobles and poets. A horse claps by on the muddy path, a rare sight. You look up to see a man in armor passing through. The sunlight hits his metal breastplate and blinds you for a moment. To you, he looks like a god. To him, you don't even exist. You'll never eat what he eats, sleep where he sleeps, or be remembered in the same books. In this world, class isn't a ladder, it's a wall. By mid-morning, the village has come alive. Women carry buckets of water from the well. Children chase each other barefoot, their laughter mixing with the bleating of goats. A dog barks somewhere, maybe at nothing, maybe at ghosts. You hear the clang of a blacksmith's hammer and the creak of cartwheels heading toward the market. Life hums around you, full of small tasks that never end. But beneath it all, there's a quiet fear. The plague hasn't reached your village yet, but rumors travel faster than rats. Every cough is suspicious, every fever a potential curse. You've seen people vanish. One day they're tilling fields, the next day they're buried outside the churchyard because no one dares touch them. The church bell rings again at noon. You pause, wipe the sweat from your brow, and cross yourself. Lunch is bread if you're lucky, a slice of salted fish if you're blessed. You sit on the ground, back aching, and watch the sky, gray, endless, indifferent. Somewhere in that sky flies the promise of heaven, but it feels very far away. By afternoon, the wind picks up. It carries the scent of smoke, manure, and wet earth, the perfume of the Middle Ages. You keep working because stopping means hunger, and hunger is always watching. Your fingers bleed where the wooden handle rubs them raw. You glance down at the mud and see your reflection, tired, hollow-eyed, but still moving, still breathing. As evening falls, the village gathers around the communal fire. Stories are traded like coins, tales of knights, dragons, saints, and sinners. You listen, half believing, half dreaming. The firelight dances on faces etched by hardship, and for a brief moment you almost forget the cold. Night creeps in quickly. There's no electricity, no lanterns, just fire and the moon. You crawl back to your hut, your muscles screaming from the day's labor. The straw mattress welcomes you like a grave. You lie beside your family, bodies pressed together for warmth, the smell of sweat, smoke, and survival thick in the air. The church bell rings once more, far away, its echo rolling over the fields like a prayer you'll never hear answered. You close your eyes. Tomorrow will be the same. Work, hunger, hope. The wheel turns, and you turn with it. And yet, in this mud, in this misery, something inside you still refuses to die. A spark, small, stubborn, human. It whispers that there's more to life than this, that someday, somehow, the world will wake up too.
A city that breathes disease. You step off the muddy road and into what they call a city. The year is still 1325. The morning mist hangs thick and gray, carrying the sour scent of smoke, sweat, and something you can't name, but your instincts tell you it's rotten. From afar, the skyline looked magnificent, tall spires, stone towers, and church bells ringing like heavenly music. But up close, it's a different symphony altogether. The air itself feels heavy, as though the city is alive, wheezing, coughing, breathing out the stench of its own decay. You've arrived in medieval Europe's proudest creation, a place where civilization and chaos live side by side. The streets are narrow, barely wide enough for 2 carts to pass. Wooden buildings lean inward like drunkards at last call, their upper floors almost touching above your head. The sunlight barely reaches the ground, and where it does, it only highlights the filth. People move like shadows, men with stained tunics, women with tattered shawls, barefoot children darting through puddles that, you pray, are just water. They're not. A merchant shouts about fresh fish, though the smell argues otherwise. The market is alive with noise, pigs squealing, chickens flapping, someone arguing over the price of onions. Everywhere the scent of meat, sweat, smoke, and waste collide into one violent perfume. You step carefully, because one wrong move and your boot will find something unpleasant, a dead rat, a pile of dung, or worse, what someone threw out their window with a casual "Gardez-le." That's old French for watch out below. Most people don't. You pass a tanner's workshop. He makes leather from animal hides soaked in urine. The smell slaps you in the face like a punishment. A few doors down, a blacksmith hammers at glowing metal, sparks flying into the air, lighting up his soot-covered face like a demon's grin. And between these workshops, a small wooden sign creaks in the wind. Ale for a penny. Inside, men are already drinking, though the sun hasn't even reached noon. The ale is thick, warm, and tastes faintly of bread mold, but it's safer than water. Water here is a gamble you'll likely lose. As you wander deeper, the city's heartbeat changes. The marketplace fades behind you. Now the streets narrow into shadows where light dares not linger. This is where the forgotten live. Beggars with hollow eyes, thieves waiting for careless travelers, women who sell warmth because it's the only thing left to sell. A boy, no older than 10, offers to clean your boots. His hands are black with dirt. You nod, but before he can begin, someone snatches the coin right out of his palm and vanishes into the crowd. The boy doesn't even chase. He just looks at you, shrugs, and goes back to begging. Here, mercy is a luxury no one can afford. You hear the bell again, not from a church this time, but from the city square. You follow the sound and find a crowd gathering around a raised wooden platform. A man in chains kneels at the center. The sheriff stands tall beside him, reading from a scroll. The crime? Theft. The punishment? Public humiliation. They lock the man's hands and head into wooden stocks. The crowd jeers. Children throw spoiled vegetables. Someone spits. And you realize this isn't just justice, it's entertainment. In medieval cities, cruelty sells tickets. The gallows, the pillory, the whipping post, all part of daily life. If you're lucky, today it's just a thief. Tomorrow it could be a heretic, a witch, or someone who simply said the wrong thing about the church. The church bells start ringing again, louder now, slower. You follow the sound and notice people covering their noses as a cart passes by. A man with a cloth mask pushes it, calling out, "Bring out your dead!" You stare at the cart, piled high with what used to be people, now just twisted shapes under torn sheets. The plague hasn't officially arrived here yet, they say, but rumor travels faster than rats, and both are everywhere. Rats scurry along the gutters, feeding on whatever the people leave behind. Fleas bite, blood mixes, and the air thickens with sickness you can almost taste. As night approaches, the city changes once more. Shops close, doors bolt, torches flicker along the walls. The brave or the desperate wander the streets. Drunks sing off-key ballads. A dog howls in the distance. Somewhere, a woman screams, and no one moves to help. You find yourself standing at the edge of a bridge, looking down at the sluggish river below. It's black with waste, carrying everything the city wants to forget. And for a moment, you understand. This isn't just a place. It's a living organism. Every alley is a vein, every bell a heartbeat,
every scream a breath. The city itself is alive, and it's sick. You turn to leave, but as you do, you feel something crawl up your leg. You look down. It's a rat, bold as sin, staring right back at you. You shake it off, but not before it disappears into the shadows, and you can't help but think, maybe that's how it starts. You glance once more at the crooked rooftops, the flickering torches, the endless smoke rising into the black sky. The world calls this civilization, but to you, it feels more like the heart of darkness. And as the bell tolls one last time, echoing through the night, a whisper lingers in your mind. You wanted to see the city? Now you know. It's breathing, dying, and it smells like death.
Plague, pain, and the price of medicine. It begins with a cough, soft, almost harmless, but in 1325, even a simple cough could mean death. The air in the city feels thicker now, heavier, quieter. The market that once roared with shouts and laughter has gone silent. Doors are barred, windows are nailed shut. The bell tolls again and again, each ring marking another soul gone cold. You see a man stumbling through the street, his face pale as chalk. He's clutching his neck. A black swelling the size of an apple throbs beneath his skin. He collapses. No one helps. Everyone steps back, crosses themselves, and whispers a single word: plague. They call it the Black Death. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, priest or peasant. It comes for everyone. Within days, entire families vanish. Houses are sealed with red crosses painted on their doors and words scrawled above, "Lord, have mercy." But mercy is in short supply. The smell of death now rules the streets. Fires burn day and night, not for warmth, but to mask the odor of rotting bodies. People carry flowers in their pockets, believing sweet scents can ward off the sickness. They sing nursery rhymes to keep away the fear, like ring-a-ring-a roses. No one realizes that rhyme will echo for centuries, born out of death itself. And then, out of the fog, they appear. Men in long black coats, faces hidden behind beaked masks, the plague doctors. They look like creatures from a nightmare. Inside those bird-like masks are herbs, mint and rose petals. They believe the fragrance protects them from bad air. In one hand they carry a wooden cane to prod the sick. They rarely speak. They don't need to. Their presence says it all. Someone nearby is dying. Medicine in this time is not about healing, it's about guessing. Doctors believe the human body has 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Get sick? One of them must be out of balance. The cure? Take some blood out. Barber surgeons, men who cut hair in the morning and cut limbs by afternoon, stand ready with razors. They drain blood from wrists, ankles, even temples. Leeches crawl across flesh, sucking life in the name of health. The patient screams. The doctor nods approvingly. If he cries, he lives, they say. If he doesn't, well, then it was God's will. Faith replaces science. The church preaches that the plague is punishment for sin. So people march barefoot through the streets, whipping their backs until blood flows. Flagellants, they're called. They believe pain will please God, and maybe, just maybe, he'll stop the dying. But he doesn't. Others turn their rage elsewhere. Rumors spread like the Jews poisoned the wells. Crowds form,
Torches flare, and innocent people burn for crimes they never committed. Fear makes monsters out of men. In the countryside, death travels like the wind. Farmers find their cattle dead, their children feverish, their neighbors gone. Priests stop visiting homes, too many of them have already fallen. Gravediggers can't keep up, so they dig massive pits and toss in dozens at a time. You pass one of those pits now. The ground is fresh, but you already hear the hum of flies. A single candle burns beside it. Someone tried to pray, but didn't finish. By night, the city glows orange from funeral fires. Dogs howl, bells toll, and in between the silence you hear weeping. A woman kneels by a doorway, her hands trembling as she ties a ribbon to the doorpost. Red for death, white for hope. Her voice is barely a whisper. "Please, not my child." She looks up, eyes hollow, skin gray, and you realize she's already sick. Days pass, though you stop counting. You see people walking with wreaths around their necks, muttering prayers under their breath. A few wear charms blessed by monks. Others clutch herbs or dried frogs. Anything to feel a little less helpless. And then there are the ones who give up entirely. They drink, they sing, they dance through the streets as if mocking death itself. Because when the world ends, what else is there left to do but laugh? By the time the wind shifts and winter comes, half the city is gone. The survivors whisper that maybe, just maybe, the plague has burned itself out. But deep inside, everyone knows it's not over. It never truly leaves. You find yourself standing in a ruined chapel. The candles have burned low. The pews are empty. Only one priest remains, coughing, praying, trembling. He looks at you, voice hoarse but steady. "It's not the disease that kills us," he says. "It's the fear. The fear eats us alive before the plague ever does." And in that moment, you understand. You wouldn't last a day, not because your body is weak, but because your mind would break long before your fever rises.
Bread, ale, and the taste of survival. Good evening, traveler. You wake up hungry again. The air is cold, the room is dark, and the day has already begun, whether you're ready or not. Outside, a rooster crows. Inside, the smoke from last night's fire still hangs in the air. You stretch your arms, feel the ache in your bones, and look around your little hut. On a rough wooden table sits what's left of breakfast. A small piece of bread, a few turnips, and a pot of something that might have been soup once. That's all. You pick up the bread. It's hard, dry, and heavier than it looks. You dip it into your ale, the only drink you have, and wait for it to soften. Then you take a bite. It tastes sour and old, but you eat it anyway, because in the Middle Ages, if you have bread and ale, you're one of the lucky ones. Food isn't just food here, it's survival. People trade it for, fight for it, and sometimes die for it. A handful of barley can buy you friendship. A chicken can settle a debt. Most peasants live on a stew called pottage. It's made of whatever's left: onions, beans, cabbage, a little salt, and maybe a bone if someone got lucky. The pot sits over the fire all day, slowly boiling, filling the house with the smell of smoke and earth. It doesn't taste good, but it fills your stomach, and that's enough. Not everyone lives like this, though. Somewhere beyond your village, inside a castle of stone, there's another world entirely.
Candles glow on long tables covered in silver dishes. Servants move quietly, carrying roasted meats, honeyed pies, and red wine. There's laughter, music, and the soft scent of cinnamon in the air. The Lord eats with his hands, drinks from a golden cup, and never wonders where his next meal will come from. His world feels like another planet. The distance between your hut and his hall may be only a few miles, but it's a lifetime apart. And when the harvest fails, everything changes. Sometimes the rain won't stop for weeks. Sometimes it never comes at all. The ground cracks, the fields turn silent, and hunger begins to spread faster than the plague. People eat bark, grass, or roots. They boil whatever they can find. And when the hunger lasts too long, darker things begin to happen. You hear whispers about graves being opened and bodies gone missing. No one dares to speak of it aloud, but everyone knows the truth. Hunger is a cruel teacher. It can make a saint into a sinner, and a man into something far worse. Bread becomes more than food. It becomes identity. The rich eat soft white loaves made from fine wheat. The poor chew on dark, heavy bread mixed with rye, barley, and sometimes dirt. The Lord's bread is sweet and light. Yours is dry and bitter, but you still hold it close, because even the poorest loaf means life. Evening comes slow and tired. You walk down the muddy road to the small tavern near the edge of the village. Inside, the air is warm and thick with laughter. Men sit at rough wooden tables, faces red from drink. Someone plays a lute in the corner, soft, broken notes that carry through the smoke. A woman sings a song about lost love, and for a moment, the world feels almost kind. You sit. A stranger passes you a mug of ale. It's cloudy, warm, and a little bitter, but it tastes like peace. You drink, and the ache in your chest fades a little. A bowl of stew appears in front of you. You don't ask what's in it, you just eat. It's thick, salty, and hot, and for the first time all day, you're full. Around you, laughter rises. People talk, sing, tell old stories of kings, ghosts, and saints. For a while, no one remembers the hunger or the cold. The tavern feels alive, like a heartbeat in the middle of the dark. A farmer raises his mug and shouts, "We're still here!" Ale spills across the table, and everyone cheers. You laugh too, not because life is easy, but because you survived another day. When you finally step outside, the night is cold again. The stars blink faintly above, small and far away. You pull your cloak tighter and start walking home. Behind you, the tavern light glows soft and golden, fading slowly into the dark. You can still hear a faint song drifting through the air, something about hope, or maybe just hunger. You take a deep breath. The wind smells like wood smoke and ale. It's not much, but it's enough. Because here, in this harsh, hungry world, even a crust of bread feels like a blessing, and every sip of ale is a promise that somehow, tomorrow, you'll survive again.
Faith, fear, and the fire of belief. The church bell rings before the sun has fully risen, rolling over the foggy village with a deep, commanding voice that wakes every soul in its path. You open your eyes and see the dim gray light slipping through the cracks of your wooden door, your stomach tightening from the familiar ache of hunger. Today is Sunday, God's day,
and every villager knows to step carefully, walk quietly, and speak even more softly. You pull your coarse wool cloak around your shoulders, the cold morning air biting at your skin, and follow the others down the muddy road to the small stone church that stands at the center of the village. Heads bowed, hands folded, every step heavy with anticipation and unease. No one dares to speak, yet everyone moves as one, guided by fear and habit. Inside, the church smells of smoke, damp stone, and the faint lingering scent of incense. The priest stands near the altar, his robes flowing, his voice echoing through the space as he speaks words of sin, punishment, and salvation. You do not understand all the Latin, but the message is clear: obey, confess, and fear. The wooden pew beneath you groans under your weight as you kneel, bowing your head, every muscle tense, every breath shallow. The priest's voice rises, recounting the horrors of hell, the fires that await sinners, and the eternal torment that will follow those who stray from God's path. You feel it press down on your chest, heavy and inescapable, a weight no blanket or cloak can protect you from. He speaks of disease as God's punishment, and hunger as a test of faith. The recent plague, the storms, the children who never took their first breath, all framed as consequences of sin. People murmur prayers beneath their breath, some weep quietly, while others stare at the floor, wishing the words would end. Your hands tighten, your chest aches, and a chill runs down your spine. Deep inside, you are unsure whether God listens, watches, or simply lets the world spin as it will. Fear blends with devotion, forming a knot in your heart that will not untangle until the bell tolls again. When the Mass ends, the villagers file out, slowly and silently, the bright morning sunlight only partially warming their faces. The priest remains at the doorway, cross in hand, scanning each face as if weighing their worth. Here, faith is not optional, it is survival. To doubt is dangerous, to question aloud is perilous. Even the smallest slip, a whispered disbelief, could carry a consequence as severe as death. You walk home with others, keeping your eyes lowered, mind racing with prayers and the silent hope that heaven is kinder than earth. By the next week, whispers begin. Strange things are noticed around the village. A cow that yields no milk, a child suddenly falling ill, a loaf of bread blackening in the oven. Fear spreads faster than any plague. Witchcraft, someone whispers, and the word spreads like wildfire. Everyone knows, even if no one speaks openly. You have heard such stories before, of women flying through the night, calling on the devil, cursing crops and wells. No one has ever seen these acts, yet fear is proof enough. One morning, the village men gather in the church square. A woman is dragged to the center, a widow, pale and trembling, her hair tangled, her eyes wide and unblinking. She is accused of speaking to herself in the night, of her cat dying suddenly, of her garden growing too fast. The priest arrives, holding his cross high, declaring her a servant of Satan. The crowd shouts, some throw stones, others spit, but the woman's cries are swallowed by the clamor. Fear has already decided her fate. By sunset, a wooden post is erected, ropes binding her tightly. The priest prays aloud, the torch is lit, and the flames rise, devouring the night and her voice in equal measure. Smoke curls skyward, carrying the horror into the still village air. People cross themselves, whispering, "May God forgive her," though their eyes betray relief that the evil is gone. The sky glows faintly red. The smell of burning wood lingers long after the fire dies down. Somewhere deep inside, you wonder, was she guilty? Did God demand this? The thoughts remain unspoken, pushed deep into the corners of your mind, because to question is to invite danger. Days pass, and the fear lingers like a shadow. The church bell rings again, and life continues with work, prayer, and silence. The priest proclaims the village safe, the evil cleansed, and people nod, grateful, whispering thanks to God. Yet the fear never leaves. Black cats are avoided, salt is thrown over shoulders, and the forest remains a place of whispers after dark. Faith and fear walk hand in hand, inseparable companions in a world ruled by the unknown. You begin to see how the church governs life. It dictates when marriages occur, when confessions are due, when prayers must be said, and how sins are judged. Disobedience is more than defiance. It is a threat to one's soul, and sometimes to life itself. Knowledge is limited. Books are held by priests, and Latin remains a secret language, keeping the ordinary villagers in quiet obedience. Yet even in obedience, a small, quiet thought might linger. What if the rules themselves are broken, and God is not as they say? In quiet moments, you dare to wonder about the suffering of innocence, about the silence of heaven, about why fear must be the language of faith. You never speak these thoughts aloud. No one does. But deep down, a whisper insists that the world may not be cursed, merely broken. Faith sustains people, even when it burns them, shapes their lives, and gives structure to chaos. That night, you lie on your rough straw mattress, staring at the wooden ceiling. The wind creeps through the cracks in the walls, carrying the distant memory of screams, prayers, and the smell of smoke. You reflect on the church, on obedience, on punishment, and on the small flicker of hope that still persists in your chest. People need belief, and in this world, belief can both be a shield and a fire. You close your eyes as the bell tolls once more, slow and deep, echoing across the village, calling some to prayer, warning others of what may come. And for a moment you feel the weight of the world, heavy and unforgiving, but you also feel that survival in this world of faith, fear, and fire is a triumph in itself. Even when prayers and screams fill the night, even when innocence is lost to flames, the simple act of waking tomorrow, breathing, and continuing on is a victory. In the Middle Ages, faith is survival, fear is a teacher, and the fire, literal and symbolic, burns as a reminder that life is fragile, obedience is demanded, and belief is the only thing that can give shape to the chaos surrounding you.
Sins, secrets, and the price of justice. The morning sun barely touches the village when the church bell begins to toll, its deep resonant sound warning the villagers that today is no ordinary day. People rise quickly, pulling on their rough woolen cloaks, stepping into the cold air with hurried, uneasy movements. Whispers follow them along the muddy streets, rumors of a trial, of a secret revealed, of sin punished. The village square, where life often feels quiet and ordinary, will today become a stage for fear, for justice, and for suffering. Every villager knows that justice in these times is swift, cruel, and merciless. You walk toward the square, the chill in the morning air biting your skin. The wooden houses line the street, smoke curling from chimneys, but today even the familiar smells of burning firewood and wet straw cannot mask the tension that hangs thickly in the air. A crowd gathers slowly, murmuring under their breath,
eyes darting nervously to the large wooden platform erected at the center. The magistrate, a stern man in dark robes, stands beside the scaffold, a heavy book in one hand and a whip coiled at his belt. Today someone will pay for a sin, real or imagined, and everyone will watch. The accused is brought forward, a young man from the village, his head lowered, eyes red from sleepless nights. He is trembling, not only from the cold, but from the weight of accusation. A crime has been whispered about in corners for weeks, a secret nobody dared to speak openly. Now the secret has surfaced, dragged into the sunlight, and there is no hiding. The magistrate reads the charges aloud, his voice echoing over the square, words sharp and deliberate, each one cutting deeper than the last. Theft, blasphemy, deceit. The list is long, the verdict already seeming inevitable. The villagers watch with a mixture of fascination and fear. Some cross themselves, whispering prayers for mercy. Others lean forward, eager to witness the unfolding drama, the punishment that is meant to remind them all that no sin goes unnoticed. Children peek from behind their mothers, wide-eyed, their small hands clutching the coarse fabric of skirts and cloaks. You find yourself standing silently at the edge of the crowd, heart pounding, unsure whether to look away or remain, captivated by the human tragedy unraveling before your eyes. The magistrate gestures to the executioner, a tall, silent man whose face is hidden beneath a hood. The accused is bound to a post, hands tied tightly, every movement restricted. The crowd falls into a tense silence, the air thick with expectation. The magistrate begins the ritual, demanding confession, promising salvation in exchange for truth. The young man struggles, stammers, but no words come easily. Fear makes the tongue heavy, the heart racing, and the mind frantic. Around the square, the villagers shift uneasily, sensing the gravity of every moment, every breath, every small movement. The executioner steps forward with instruments meant to extract confession, tools designed to inflict pain and terror. The young man cries out, his voice raw, echoing across the village like a warning. The magistrate commands silence, insisting the truth will prevail over deceit, that God's justice is absolute and unquestionable. Yet as the instruments are raised, the people feel a mixture of horror and relief. Horror for the cruelty, relief that the law has been enforced, that the sin has been punished, and that they themselves are not the next. Time stretches slowly. Each moment of torment is drawn out, a spectacle of pain that reminds everyone that secrets cannot remain buried, that sins cannot go unpunished. The young man's cries mingled with the clatter of the executioner's tools and the quiet sobs of onlookers. Somewhere, a child vomits behind a corner. The air is thick with smoke, sweat, and fear, an invisible pressure that seems to press down on everyone present. And yet no one looks away. The human mind is a strange thing, drawn to horror, yet repelled by it, held captive by the desire to witness justice in its rawest form. After what feels like an eternity, the magistrate announces the verdict, the words slicing through the tension like a blade. The punishment is delivered, a public mark, a whipping, a shaming, a reminder that sin carries a price that cannot be avoided. The crowd reacts with murmurs, some nodding in approval, others shaking their heads in dismay. The young man is released, bruised, battered, humiliated, yet alive. A living reminder to the villagers that the line between mercy and cruelty is thin, and that justice is as much a tool of fear as it is of law. As the crowd disperses, conversations hum through the streets, stories of the punishment growing with every telling. The lesson has been imparted. Secrets are dangerous, sins are costly, and the law is an unyielding master. People return to their work, but the memory lingers, shaping their thoughts, their actions, and their whispers in dark corners. Fear has taught its lesson once again. You walk home slowly, heart still racing, head heavy with thoughts of justice and punishment. The day feels longer than usual, the sunlight harsher, the wind sharper. You realize that life in these times is a precarious balance between sin and redemption, secrecy and exposure, mercy and cruelty. Every choice carries weight, every word is measured, and every glance may be interpreted as evidence of guilt. By evening, the village returns to its quiet rhythm, but the echoes of the day's events resonate in every home, every heart. Candles flicker in windows, smoke rises from chimneys, and the knowledge of what transpired today remains vivid. People speak less, move cautiously, and cross themselves more frequently, reminded once again that survival depends not only on strength and skill, but on obedience, vigilance, and the careful guarding of secrets. As night falls and you lie on your straw mattress, you consider the fragile threads that hold society together: faith, fear, law, and punishment. You close your eyes, listening to the wind whisper through the cracks, imagining the faces of those who lived and suffered today, wondering how many secrets will remain buried and how many sins will demand another reckoning. In the Middle Ages, justice is never blind. It watches, it waits, and it punishes. And the price of sin is a burden no one can escape.
Markets, medicine, and the madness of the streets. The morning sun breaks through the fog, spilling pale light over the winding streets of the village. You step outside, and the world is already alive with noise, movement, and smells. The market square is crowded, chaotic, and unforgettable, a living organism of its own. Vendors shout, children run between carts, and the smell of fresh bread mixes with the stench of rotting fish. A dog barks at a wandering chicken, while a goat munches on scraps of straw. Here, life is messy, loud, and full of surprises. You walk toward a stall where vegetables are piled high: cabbages, turnips, carrots, onions. The vendor's face is streaked with sweat, his voice rough from shouting. He promises the freshest produce, the sweetest herbs, the kind of food that might save your life if the plague or hunger strikes. You pick up a turnip, inspect it, and hand over a few coins, counting each one carefully. Money is scarce, and every coin carries the weight of survival. Around you, merchants argue, bargain, and occasionally throw fruit when tempers flare. The market is a theater of small dramas, each one worth a story. Not far away, a strange stall catches your attention. Bottles of colored liquids sit in the sun, glowing like captured sunlight. A man with a long, crooked beard promises cures for every ailment imaginable: toothache, fever, rickets, even the curse of bad luck. You watch as he pours a dark liquid into a clay cup and hands it to a woman whose child is coughing violently. She drinks it without hesitation, desperate for hope, and whispers a prayer under her breath. The man smiles, pleased with the transaction, and begins mixing another potion, muttering words that sound like Latin but mean nothing at all. Medicine in these days is as much magic as it is science, and survival often depends on faith, not logic. The streets twist and turn like a maze, each corner revealing a new story. A drunk stumbles, cursing and laughing at the same time. A baker scolds a boy who tries to steal a loaf of bread. A man juggles apples while reciting poetry, earning coins from onlookers. In every moment there is danger and delight. The sidewalks are uneven, strewn with mud, straw, and the occasional refuse from homes above. Every step is a negotiation with gravity, filth, and luck. You pass a barber surgeon's shop, its sign swinging in the morning breeze. Inside, a man sharpens knives while talking about bloodletting and leeches, the only remedies anyone trusts. He boasts of curing headaches, fevers, and the curse of a bad humors, explaining that a small cut or a leech can balance the body, cleanse the blood, and restore health. Villagers enter nervously, hands wringing, ready to be cut or bled for the hope of feeling better tomorrow. You shiver slightly, imagining the pain, yet you also know they will leave grateful if they survive the procedure. Medicine is an art of fear as much as healing. Amid the chaos, gossip spreads faster than the plague. A merchant claims a neighbor's cow has been bewitched. A woman whispers that the baker is stealing flour. Children share tales of a ghost in the alley, a boy who vanished last month, or a stranger spotted at midnight. Every corner hums with speculation, and everyone listens carefully. Secrets, rumors, and fear mingle in the air, shaping behavior as much as law or faith ever could. The market is also a place of entertainment. Minstrels sing songs of heroes, of knights who never return, of love and betrayal. Jugglers, acrobats, and storytellers perform on carts and crates, weaving magic from motion, sound, and story. You pause for a moment, letting the music and laughter wash over you. It is a temporary reprieve from the hunger, the labor, and the weight of life. For a few minutes, the world seems lighter, almost ordinary, and almost safe. Yet danger is never far. Children dart into the path of carts, livestock wanders without warning, and thieves lurk in the crowded alleys. A pickpocket brushes past you, fingers nimble and fast, lifting coins from purses and pockets. The cry of a merchant chasing a thief echoes through the square, blending with the shouts of customers demanding fair prices. Life here is a constant negotiation between risk and reward, courage and caution. The sun climbs higher, and the heat adds another layer of chaos. Smells grow sharper, noise grows louder, and every sense is overloaded. A man collapses from heat exhaustion. Villagers rush to help, offering water or shade, while others avert their eyes, unwilling to intervene. Survival is not just about food or medicine. It's about watching, judging, and acting quickly when opportunity or danger appears. The streets are a school of constant lessons, each one teaching patience, cunning, and endurance. As evening approaches, the market begins to thin. Stalls close, carts are packed, and merchants count coins and goods, satisfied with the day or disappointed by misfortune. The streets are quieter, yet the stories linger in every doorway, every shadow, every whisper. Children drag their parents' baskets home, animals follow their owners, and the smells of cooking fill the air. The square that roared with life now hums softly, settling into the rhythm of night. You walk home heavy with the day's sights, sounds, and scents. You carry the turnips, the coins, the memories, each step measured and cautious. The market has taught you much today about human ambition, human folly, and human endurance. You have seen hope and desperation, cunning and innocence, laughter and fear, all intertwined in a chaotic dance that defines life here. Lying on your straw mattress that night, you replay the events in your mind. The potions, the gossip, the juggling, the shouting, everything mixes together, forming a vivid tapestry of survival. You realize that life in these streets, as chaotic and dangerous as it is also alive, vibrant, and unforgettable. Tomorrow, the market will open again, and the dance will repeat. You will rise, step into the noise, and navigate it as best as you can, learning new lessons, avoiding new dangers, and discovering once again that in this world, life and madness are inseparable companions.
Nightfall, crime, and shadows of fear. As the sun dips behind the jagged rooftops, the village is swallowed by shadows. The warmth of day fades quickly, replaced by the sharp bite of cold evening air. Lanterns flicker along the streets, their weak light struggling against the growing darkness. The village square, bustling with noise hours before, is now quiet, save for the occasional clatter of a cart or the distant bark of a dog. Night is not merely the absence of light, it is a different world, one ruled by fear, superstition, and survival. You step carefully along the uneven cobblestones, the weight of your day's work pressing on your legs. The smell of damp straw and smoke lingers, mingling with the faint tang of rotting refuse from earlier hours. Shadows stretch unnaturally, and every movement feels larger than life. Somewhere behind a doorway, a whisper escapes, carrying rumors of theft, of strangers, or worse, of spirits walking the streets. You clutch your cloak tighter, glancing nervously at the darkened alleys, aware that night belongs as much to thieves, beggars, and mischief-makers as it does to honest villagers. The marketplace, now deserted, looks like a skeletal memory of its daytime chaos. Empty carts lean against walls, overturned crates litter the ground, and the smell of stale bread and fish hangs in the air. You pass a blacksmith's shop, the glow of his dying forge spilling through the doorway, casting dancing shadows across the street. He works alone, hammering quietly, each strike echoing in the dark. There is a rhythm to it, a reminder that even in night, life continues, but survival here is measured by caution and awareness. From a distance you hear shouting, sharp and sudden, followed by the rapid clatter of footsteps. A thief has been caught trying to steal a bag of coins from a distracted merchant. Villagers emerge from their homes, lanterns swinging, their voices a mix of outrage and excitement. The thief is beaten publicly, punished for daring to cross the boundaries of law and fear. The spectacle serves as both warning and entertainment, a lesson to those who might be tempted to disobey. In the Middle Ages, justice is not always measured by fairness, but by visibility. Public humiliation ensures that fear spreads farther than punishment ever could. The streets twist and narrow as you move toward your home. A group of children huddle under a cart, whispering about ghosts, witches, and strangers with dark intentions. Superstition thrives in the night as the human mind seeks explanation for the unknown. Every shadow becomes a phantom, every gust of wind a threat. You feel it too, that tightening of the chest, the slight tremor of fear that reminds you how easily control can slip from your grasp. The night is alive, and its life is unpredictable, dangerous, and sometimes merciless. A faint cry carries across the empty street. You pause, listening intently. It could be nothing, a cat, a stray dog, a drunkard losing balance, but in the night, nothing is innocent. The cries grow louder, nearer, until a woman emerges, her dress torn, her eyes wide with panic. She tells of a mugger, a stranger who attacked her while she walked home from the tavern. Villagers gather cautiously, lanterns swinging, their voices a mix of murmurs spreading like wildfire. Fear is contagious, and by the time the woman reaches safety, the entire neighborhood knows of the danger that lurks in darkness. In one alley, you see a shadow moving against the wall. Your heart jumps. A man emerges, carrying a sack of stolen goods, glancing nervously over his shoulder. He disappears before anyone can intervene, leaving only the memory of movement, of crime, and of risk. In this world, the night is a place where moral lines blur, and survival often depends on speed, cunning, and luck. Every step you take is a negotiation with possibility, with chance, and with the unseen. Even the smallest actions carry weight. A lantern left burning invites attention. A locked door may not keep out a determined thief. A careless word can spread gossip that ruins lives. The village operates under an unspoken law. Be vigilant, be quick, and respect the invisible boundaries of fear. Those who forget these lessons quickly find themselves paying a steep price, whether by theft, humiliation, or worse. As darkness deepens, the distant howl of wolves punctuates the quiet, reminding villagers that danger is not limited to human hands. You pass the edge of the forest, its trees standing tall and menacing, black against the dim sky. Legends warn of spirits and creatures that prowl these woods at night, seeking the lost, the careless, or the unfortunate. The stories may be exaggerated, but the fear is real, and it shapes behavior, guiding footsteps and decisions with invisible authority. Returning home, the safety of your small wooden hut feels profound. The familiar smell of straw, sweat, and smoke is oddly comforting after the chaos of streets and shadows. You lock the door, sit beside the dying fire, and reflect on the day's events. Markets, theft, rumors, superstition, and fear have all intertwined, painting a vivid picture of medieval life after dusk. Each moment has taught a lesson about human nature, about vigilance, about the tenuous grasp of safety, and the omnipresent power of fear in shaping behavior. You lie on your straw mattress, listening to the wind whisper through the cracks in the walls, carrying the night's secrets with it. The distant call of an owl, the rustle of animals, and the occasional footstep echo in the darkness. You realize that survival in this world is not just about food or shelter, but about reading the signs, understanding the whispers, and respecting the shadows. Every night is a test of wits, courage, and instinct. And as sleep finally claims you, you understand one undeniable truth. In the Middle Ages, the night is alive, full of danger, full of opportunity, full of life itself. Fear and caution walk beside every villager, shaping their actions, molding their decisions, and ensuring that tomorrow, when the sun rises once again, they will wake with lessons learned and eyes open. Life in these streets is never simple, never safe, and never dull. Festivals, folly, and forbidden pleasures. The smell of roasted meat and burning torches drifts across the village square, announcing that the festival has begun. Children run between stalls, chasing one another with wooden swords and ribbons, their laughter loud and contagious. The air is thick with music, the clatter of drums, the twang of lutes, and the high-pitched squeals of minstrels, weaving tales of love, bravery, and folly. For a few hours, the daily hardships of hunger, labor, and fear are forgotten, replaced by chaos, indulgence, and celebration. You weave through the crowd, eyes wide at the spectacle. Stalls overflow with sweets made from honey, candied fruits, and spiced cakes. Merchants shout about their wares, competing for attention with fortune tellers, jugglers, and acrobats. A man dances atop a cart, his movements wild and uncoordinated, yet somehow mesmerizing. You pause, drawn in to the energy, feeling the pulse of the village and the pounding drum beats and the rhythmic clapping of hands. Festivals are the heartbeat of medieval life, a brief escape from the grim realities that lie just beyond the square. In one corner, a group of men toss dice, their faces grim yet hopeful, gambling away coins earned from weeks of hard labor. Nearby, women sip from cups of spiced ale, gossiping about neighbors, lovers, and the local priest. Every glance, every whispered word carries the thrill of secrecy. Even as people celebrate, the undercurrent of forbidden pleasures hums through the festival, a reminder that human desire never sleeps, even in times of strict moral codes. The festival is not without its risks. A brawl breaks out between two drunken men, sending a cart of apples tumbling to the ground. Villagers scatter, dodging the flying fruit, some laughing, some scowling, others taking advantage to sneak coins or sweets while attention is diverted. Children shriek in delight as one of the men stumbles into a puddle, the scene both shocking and absurd. Festivals amplify human behavior, joy, greed, fear, mischief, turning the ordinary into something larger, louder, and unforgettable. You notice a troupe of performers preparing for the evening show. One plays a lute, another balances flaming torches, and a third juggles knives, his expression calm despite the danger. Villagers gather, craning their necks, eyes reflecting the glow of torches. The performers tell stories of kings and peasants, of love and betrayal, of feasts that ended in chaos. You feel drawn into their tales, momentarily forgetting the cold, the hunger, and the shadows that lurk beyond the square. The festival transforms the village into a living theater where reality and fantasy intertwine seamlessly. Food is everywhere, yet nowhere safe. Roasted meat drips fat onto the cobblestones, pastries crumble under the weight of eager hands, and spilled ale stains the ground. You taste everything you can, savoring flavors that would be a rare treat on an ordinary day. Indulgence is a temporary rebellion against routine, against scarcity, and against the oppressive rules of morality that govern everyday life. Every bite is a small act of defiance, a celebration of life itself. As night falls, the torches cast long, dancing shadows across the square. People laugh, shout, and dance, yet in the corner you notice more discreet gatherings. Lovers steal kisses behind carts, whispered conversations exchange secrets, and small deals are made in the dark. Forbidden pleasures thrive in the festival, hidden beneath layers of laughter and spectacle. It is a reminder that human nature is irrepressible, that desire, curiosity, and cunning find their place even under watchful eyes. The music swells as the performers climax their acts. Flames leap higher, swords spin through the air, and villagers clap, cheer, and gasp in awe. You stand among them, heart pounding, exhilarated by the sensory overload. The festival is a world apart from the everyday, a place where rules bend, courage is tested, and wonder is real. Even the poorest villager can feel rich for a few hours, caught up in the rhythm of celebration, laughter, and human ingenuity. Yet even amidst joy, reminders of mortality appear. A man collapses after too much wine, a child cries over a lost toy, and the smell of smoke from an overturned torch momentarily terrifies the crowd. Festivals, while freeing, are also dangerous. Every indulgence carries risk, every pleasure a hint of consequence. Medieval life is unforgiving, and the boundary between joy and disaster is thin, often crossed in a single moment of miscalculation. As the festival winds down, lanterns flicker and torches burn lower. Villagers stagger home, some singing, some swearing, all carrying the memories of a day lived fully. Merchants count coins, children clutch sweets, and performers pack their instruments, leaving the square quieter, but still alive with echoes of laughter, music, and whispered secrets. You walk home slowly, savoring the last sensations of the day, aware that tomorrow the routine of labor, fear, and survival will resume. Lying on your straw mattress, the sounds of the village gradually fade. The taste of honey, the feel of mud underfoot, and the echo of music linger in your mind. You realize that these fleeting moments of celebration are a vital part of life, a reminder of human resilience, desire, and creativity. Festivals are more than amusement. They are a declaration that even in hardship, joy, mischief, and the human spirit endure. In the quiet of night, you reflect on the contrasts of medieval life: fear and freedom, deprivation and indulgence, rules and rebellion. The festival has shown you the complexity of existence, the unpredictability of human behavior, and the enduring hunger for pleasure, connection, and survival. As sleep finally claims you, you carry with you the vivid memory of a day where life was amplified, danger mingled with delight, and the world, if only for a few hours, seemed limitless. Winter, hunger, and the shadows of the hearth. The first frost of winter creeps silently over the village, covering roofs, streets, and fields with a brittle, glistening layer. Each step on the frozen ground cracks beneath your feet, a constant reminder of the season's unforgiving grip. The air bites your exposed skin, your breath forming clouds that vanish into the pale morning. You wrap your tattered wool cloak tighter, feeling the chill seep into bones already weary from labor and hunger. The village is quieter now, muffled by snow, but the stillness carries its own menace, the subtle knowledge that winter is survival's greatest test. Inside the hut, the fire struggles against the cold. The smoke curls into the low ceiling, leaving the room hazy, while the small flames lick at blackened logs. Your family huddles close, bodies pressed together for warmth, sharing what little food remains. A small pot of watery stew bubbles feebly, its thin aroma promising more hope than substance. Every scrap is rationed, every morsel measured. Hunger gnaws relentlessly, a dull ache that never leaves, reminding you that in this season the weakest rarely survive. The livestock suffers as much as the humans. Goats and chickens huddle together, their breaths forming tiny clouds in the icy air of the barn. The hay is damp and frozen in parts, the ground beneath hard and unyielding. Feed is scarce, the stores from autumn are nearly exhausted. Farmers whisper about the coming months, about rationing, about the threat of disease. Every decision carries weight, every mistake could be fatal. Life is a precarious balance between human cunning, luck, and the relentless cruelty of nature. Outside, the streets are nearly impassable. Snow drifts against doors, blocking paths and narrowing alleys. Villagers move slowly, carrying buckets of water, firewood, or small amounts of food. Each journey is fraught with danger: slippery ice, hidden obstacles, and the ever-present risk of exposure. Children stumble, mothers curse under their breath, and men strain under heavy loads. The village's rhythm slows, the ordinary chaos of day-to-day life tempered by the harsh reality of winter. Survival requires constant attention, careful planning, and the occasional measure of courage. The church remains the center of village life. Its stone walls offer warmth, safety, and a place to gather. People crowd inside, seeking comfort in prayers, hoping for divine intervention to spare them from the cold and hunger. Candles flicker, casting elongated shadows across faces lined with worry. The priest speaks of patience, faith, and divine providence, but his words do little to ease the gnawing emptiness in the stomachs of children or the ache in the bones of the elderly. Faith provides solace, but it cannot fill the belly or thaw frozen fingers. Winter brings disease in its wake. Coughs echo through the streets, fevers rise in crowded homes, and the infirm often lie unattended. Simple ailments that summer would barely touch now become deadly. Villagers whisper of God's punishment, of invisible curses, or of witches causing the illness. The thin line between superstition and reality blurs, and fear becomes constant as the cold. Families huddle closer, guarding children, rationing food, and praying that the sick survive another night. Food scarcity is a daily challenge. Only the wealthiest households have a chance at a full meal. The rest subsist on stale bread, thin gruel, and whatever root vegetables survived the frost. Every bite is savored, every crumb protected. Hoarding is common, generosity rare. Villagers trade in secret, passing small portions of grain or dried meat for soap, firewood, or a warm blanket. Hunger shapes relationships, decisions, and behavior, a silent but powerful force in every home, alley, and market stall. The darkness arrives early, swallowing the village in near complete blackness by mid-afternoon. Lanterns are precious and few, casting small pools of light that barely penetrate the cold gloom. Shadows grow long, twisting across walls and snowdrifts, creating eerie illusions. Every rustle of wind through a thatched roof, every howl of a distant animal sends hearts racing. Night in winter is a test of endurance, a time when danger, isolation, and fear are magnified. Survival is as much about staying warm, alert, and calm as it is about food or fire. Despite the hardship, small moments of life persist. Children make snowballs, laughing despite frozen fingers. Villagers share whispered jokes by the fire, moments of warmth amidst the struggle. A stray dog curls beside the hearth, and an old woman hums a faint melody, a fragile thread of humanity in the relentless cold. These fleeting comforts are reminders that even in the harshest seasons, life, laughter, and hope endure, however fragile. By nightfall, the village is mostly silent. Only the wind moves freely, carrying the scent of smoke, frozen earth, and cooking fires. Inside your hut, the family rests as best they can, bodies pressed for warmth, minds alert to every creak, every whistle of wind. Tomorrow promises more labor, more hunger, and more cold. Yet there is a strange resilience in the human spirit, a determination to endure, to survive, to see another sunrise despite all odds. Lying on your straw mattress, fingers numb and stomach aching, you think of the day's challenges. You realize that winter in the Middle Ages is a trial unlike any other, shaping character, testing patience, and exposing the limits of both body and mind. Each night survived, each morsel consumed, each fire kept alive is a small victory, a defiance against the relentless cruelty of nature and circumstance. In the heart of the long night, you feel the fragile warmth of the hearth, the thin hope of faith, and the stubborn persistence of survival. Winter may be cruel, hunger merciless, and fear ever present, but life continues, stubborn and resilient, reminding all who live it that even in the darkest season, endurance is possible, and tomorrow is another chance to rise, to fight, and to live.
Trades, taverns, and the hidden lives of the people. The village wakes slowly, fog lifting from cobblestone streets, revealing the morning bustle of tradesmen and laborers. The smith hammers iron into horseshoes, sparks flying, echoing through the narrow alleys. The baker kneads dough in the warmth of his small oven, the smell of bread curling into the street. Carpenters measure and saw, shouting instructions to apprentices. Each trade is a lifeline, a rhythm that keeps the village alive. Without these hands, without their skill, the fragile world of the Middle Ages would collapse into chaos. You pass a cobbler's stall, leather stretched across a frame, soles waiting to be stitched onto worn shoes. The man's hands are calloused, movements precise, eyes scanning for any imperfection. Every villager relies on such artisans, yet they are often underpaid and overworked. Respect is earned through skill, not rank.
Observing him, you realize that survival depends not only on one's own labor, but on the expertise of others, a delicate web of dependence that defines medieval life. As the sun climbs higher, the taverns begin to fill. The smell of roasted meat, spilled ale, and smoke fills the air, carrying hints of warmth and mischief. Inside, villagers gather, some sharing meals, others gossiping, plotting, or merely drinking to forget the hardships of the day. The tavern is both a refuge and a stage, a place where secrets are exchanged, alliances are formed, and tempers flare. You notice men laughing loudly over dice games, women exchanging knowing glances, and the barkeep navigating every interaction with keen attention. Here, even ordinary conversation carries weight. Taverns are also where the darker side of human nature shows itself. Thieves eye wallets, drunks insult strangers, and small disputes escalate into fights within moments. Yet, despite the chaos, there is an underlying order, an unspoken understanding of boundaries, hierarchies, and rules. Those who understand the rules thrive. Those who do not quickly pay the price. Observing these interactions, you understand that social survival is as crucial as physical survival in this world. Workshops teem with activity, each trade a world of its own. The weaver's loom clicks steadily, threads crossing and forming patterns that will clothe the village. The potter molds clay with skillful fingers, producing bowls, jugs, and tiles for both practical and decorative purposes. Apprentices scurry, learning the craft under watchful eyes, mistakes punished with harsh words or corrections. Life in the workshops is structured, yet precarious, rewarding diligence and punishing carelessness. Outside, street vendors continue their calls, selling everything from dried herbs to trinkets, from candles to small knives. You notice a child attempting to sell painted stones to passers-by, his small voice nearly drowned by the clamor. Even the youngest are pressed into commerce, learning early that survival demands ingenuity, perseverance, and a willingness to endure public scrutiny. The street is a classroom, the marketplace a teacher, and life itself an unyielding curriculum. The tavern's back rooms harbor even more secrets. Lovers meet in shadows, plotting trysts away from prying eyes. Villagers share news, some true, some exaggerated, some intentionally false, shaping perceptions and controlling rumors. Political whispers reach ears that will carry them further, and debts are negotiated quietly with gestures and nods. Every corner of this world holds hidden transactions, invisible strings that bind individuals in a web of mutual dependence, manipulation, and caution. At mid-afternoon, the blacksmith pauses, wiping sweat from his brow. The tavern becomes louder as patrons return for another round of ale. Children dart through the streets, occasionally colliding with adults, laughter echoing off walls. The village hums with energy, a symphony of work, indulgence, and survival. Every sound, smell, and motion is a reminder of life's intensity, the way ordinary existence teeters on a knife's edge, where fortune and disaster are often separated by moments, not days. Evening brings a different rhythm. Lanterns are lit, smoke rises from chimneys, and shadows lengthen across the alleys. Taverns grow rowdier, laughter louder, but the air is thick with tension. Those who have crossed others during the day watch their backs. Those who owe debts remain wary. Secrets shared in daylight are tested at night, and actions taken in public may have consequences in the shadows. Life in the village is a continuous negotiation between visibility and discretion, a careful dance between exposure and concealment. Returning home, the smell of wood smoke and stew greets you. The fire flickers weakly, and the family gathers, sharing news of the day, meals, and quiet conversations. Stories of trades, tavern brawls, and small victories mix with whispered rumors of illness, theft, or gossip. You reflect on the interdependence that shapes every aspect of life here. The trades that sustain bodies, the taverns that shape minds, and the secrets that shape hearts. Lying on your straw mattress, the events of the day replay vividly in your mind. The hammering of iron, the shuffle of coins, the laughter, the arguments, the whispered deals. You understand that life in this medieval village is not merely about survival. It is about observation, negotiation, cunning, and adaptability. Every human action, no matter how small, has consequences that ripple through the community. In this world, knowledge of trades, understanding of social nuances, and awareness of hidden dynamics are as important as strength, skill, or faith. As sleep finally claims you, you feel the pulse of the village still in your chest, a heartbeat of labor, indulgence, secrecy, and survival. Tomorrow, the trades will continue, the taverns will fill, and the hidden lives of the villagers will unfold again. Each day is a lesson, a trial, and a story, and surviving it requires more than just courage. It demands wit, perception, and a keen understanding of human nature in all its messy, vibrant, unpredictable glory.
Plague, panic, and the fragility of life. The air is heavy with an invisible threat. Rumors of a deadly illness reach the village, whispered along alleys, over fences, and through taverns. Faces pale as they listen, eyes darting nervously to neighbors, strangers, and even familiar friends. In the Middle Ages, sickness is both feared and misunderstood, and the plague is a shadow that descends without warning, leaving devastation in its wake. Survival depends not only on strength, but on vigilance, knowledge, and sometimes sheer luck. You step into the market square, noting the unusual quiet. Stalls stand unattended, merchants shuttering their goods early. A woman cries softly, clutching a child to her chest, while a man hurries past, coughing violently. The smell of decay lingers faintly, a warning that death is closer than anyone wishes to admit. Even the animals behave strangely. Dogs yelp without reason, birds scatter noisily, and livestock moves nervously, sensing the unease of humans around them. Fear is infectious, spreading faster than the disease itself. Inside homes, families take drastic measures. Doors are barred, fires burn constantly, and herbs and charms are hung in windows as protection. Mothers whisper prayers over their children, hoping divine intervention will stave off the inevitable. The local priest moves cautiously, blessing homes with holy water, speaking words of comfort, yet privately worried about his own survival. Medicine is primitive, superstition reigns supreme. Bloodletting, leeches, and strange concoctions are offered as remedies, though often they worsen the condition rather than heal it. The sick are isolated, left in dark corners or separate huts, their suffering a grim spectacle for those who must witness. Families struggle to provide care, rationing precious food and water, balancing compassion against the very real threat of infection. Death comes quickly for some, slowly for others, yet in every case, the fragility of life is undeniable. The village feels smaller, quieter, each home more isolated, each human more aware of their mortality.
Fear drives behavior as much as disease. People avoid crowded streets, markets empty before noon, and tradesmen work quickly, eyes alert for any sign of illness in customers. Even children play less, their laughter muffled by worry and caution. Trust erodes. Neighbors glance suspiciously at one another, fearful that anyone might carry the contagion. Society bends under the weight of paranoia as survival instincts clash with social bonds, friendship, and family ties. The church becomes both refuge and fearsome presence. Mass is held in hushed tones, candles flicker as though threatened by invisible hands, and the priest exhorts the villagers to repentance, claiming that sin may have brought divine punishment in the form of plague. Some villagers heed the warning, confessing sins publicly, hoping for mercy. Others flee, unwilling to submit to rules they see as powerless against death. Faith is a fragile comfort, a tool of guidance and terror alike, shaping the response to an enemy no one can see. Streets that were once vibrant are now eerily silent. A cart passes slowly, carrying supplies to those who remain, yet the streets are otherwise abandoned. Windows are shuttered, doors bolted, and only the occasional whisper breaks the quiet. The wind carries sounds of coughing, distant cries, and the faint rattle of bones, a grim reminder that life is fleeting and death can strike anywhere. Survival in such times is not about courage alone, but on observation, prudence, and sometimes an almost supernatural luck. The market, once the heart of daily life, is now a place of anxiety. Merchants avoid eye contact, customers hesitate to approach, and trade slows to a trickle. Food scarcity worsens as supplies dwindle, and fear drives prices higher. Those who venture out must navigate the twin dangers of disease and desperation, aware that both could be fatal. Life in the village becomes a delicate balance between necessity and caution, with each step weighed against the threat of the unseen killer lurking in the shadows. Families cope in different ways. Some cling together, sharing warmth, stories, and food, finding small comforts in human contact. Others isolate themselves completely, driven by fear, suspicion, or the harsh logic of survival. Children watch adults with wide, anxious eyes, absorbing lessons of caution, distrust, and resilience that will shape their lives. In every home, the plague teaches lessons about mortality, human behavior, and the relentless fragility of life. Night brings no relief. The wind howls through empty streets, carrying echoes of coughing and moans. Fires flicker weakly, shadows stretching unnaturally, making every corner seem like a hiding place for death. The village sleeps fitfully, dreams haunted by loss, uncertainty, and the knowledge that tomorrow may bring more sorrow. Each breath taken in darkness is heavy, measured, a silent negotiation between fear and endurance. As you lie on your straw mattress, heart pounding and stomach empty, the day's events replay vividly in your mind. The fear, the whispers, the isolation, the deaths, all are reminders of the fragile line between life and death. The Middle Ages are not merely a backdrop of hard labor and superstition. They are a crucible where human resilience, ingenuity, and fear intersect, shaping the lives of all who endure. Survival is a test, a continuous challenge where caution, wit, and courage are your only allies. And yet, even amidst the terror, life persists. Children laugh quietly in hidden corners, families whisper stories to maintain hope, and some brave villagers continue their trades, their work a testament to human stubbornness. The plague may darken the village, sow panic, and claim lives, but it cannot extinguish the human spirit. Every day survived, every secret observed, every precaution taken is a small victory, a defiance of fate, and a reminder that life, however fragile, continues. Noble houses, court intrigue, and hidden ambitions. The castle stands tall against a blood-orange sky, its towers gleaming with pride and danger alike. From a distance, it looks like a symbol of stability, a fortress of power and wealth. But within its stone walls, whispers slither like snakes through shadowed corridors. Nobles walk gracefully through candlelit halls, their silken robes hiding daggers, both literal and political. The medieval court is a stage where loyalty is an illusion and every smile conceals a motive. You are not of royal blood, yet tonight you stand inside this grand palace, carrying messages between nobles too cautious to be seen speaking together. The air smells of perfume, roasted meat, and paranoia. Behind every jeweled curtain, alliances are born and broken. Servants move like ghosts, trained to see without being seen, to hear without remembering. You realize quickly that in this world, survival depends not on honesty, but on knowing when to lie. The noble houses of the realm are bound by marriage, war, and deceit. Lords and ladies exchange letters sealed with wax, each containing promises and threats dressed as poetry. The king may sit on the throne, but true power flows through hidden conversations, through the hands of those who understand how to manipulate hearts and control rumors. One misplaced word can end a dynasty. One whisper can start a war. In a corner of the great hall, a feast unfolds under chandeliers dripping with gold. Musicians play, jesters perform, and laughter fills the air. But you can feel the tension humming beneath the surface. A single glance between two nobles across the table tells a betrayal, a rivalry masked by politeness. Every toast is double-edged, every compliment laced with hidden meaning. Politics here is an art, and its brush is dipped in deceit. The queen sits silently beside the king, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. She knows more than she should, and trusts fewer than she must. Rumor says she keeps a secret diary, one that could destroy half the noble houses if ever found. Some say she writes the truth. Others whisper that she invents lies to test her courtiers. Either way, the fear she inspires is as valuable as any crown jewel. In chambers above, the king's advisors argue over taxes, wars, and trade, their voices echoing through the cold stone halls. Maps are spread, candles burn low, and the scent of melted wax fills the air. Yet for all their talk of diplomacy and loyalty, every man in the room is plotting his own ascent. Medieval politics is a chessboard where pawns dream of becoming kings and kings fear becoming pawns. At night, secret meetings unfold behind locked doors. You hear murmurs through the walls, plans to marry off daughters for land, to forge treaties for power, to poison rivals quietly. The same hands that raise goblets in celebration might slip venom into a cup before dawn. Letters vanish mysteriously, guards disappear, and servants are found dead by the well. The castle sleeps, but the game of power never does. You learn to move carefully, to speak softly, to trust no one. Even a misplaced glance can make you a target. The nobles play their game with smiles and silence, but for those below them, a single misstep can cost a life. Yet there's beauty in their madness, the way ambition burns through their eyes, the way fear makes them desperate, human. Beneath all the grandeur lies the same fragile hunger that drives peasants and kings alike, the need to survive. The castle itself feels alive. Its walls listen, Its staircases creak like they're whispering secrets. In the flickering candlelight, the portraits of ancestors seem to watch with judgmental eyes, as if they too enjoy the endless theater of deceit. Every corridor smells faintly of wax and blood, of power earned and lost. You begin to understand that history is not written by the honest, it is carved by the ambitious, polished by the survivors. Dawn arrives with cold air seeping through the cracks of the great hall. The laughter of last night feels like an echo from another world. Servants clean spilled wine and collect fallen goblets, erasing evidence of whatever deals were struck in shadow. Outside, the peasants wake to another day of labor, unaware that their fates are decided by the lies told behind these gilded walls. You pause at the balcony overlooking the courtyard. The nobles below move with confidence, unaware of how fragile their world truly is. A single scandal, a wrong alliance, or a failed whisper could bring it all crashing down. Power in the Middle Ages is not about who wears the crown, but who knows the secrets that can break it. The bells ring for morning prayer. For a brief moment, the court seems peaceful, united under faith and tradition. Yet even in that silence, ambition stirs. The Queen's eyes meet yours for a second, sharp, knowing, dangerous. She smiles faintly, a smile that tells you she's already 3 moves ahead in a game you never meant to play. As the light filters through stained glass and paints the marble floor in colors of blood and gold, you realize something. The medieval world is not divided between good and evil, but between the cunning and the careless, and only one of them ever lives long enough to tell the tale.
Forbidden faiths and the burning of belief. The church bell tolls, deep and mournful, echoing through a gray bawn. Its sound rolls over the village like a slow wave of fear. You wake to find the air heavy with smoke, not from hearth fires, but from something darker. Down in the square, the townsfolk gather in silence, their faces pale, their eyes fixed on the wooden platform rising like a gallows. Today, another sinner will burn. Faith in the Middle Ages was not gentle. It was not comforting. It was law, fear, and survival all woven into one divine command. The church ruled not only souls, but also minds, and to question it, even in whispers, was to invite death. In a world where plagues came without warning and crops failed without mercy, people needed explanations, and the church, cloaked in certainty, provided them. God's will was unquestionable. To doubt was sin. To sin was death. You walk through the crowd, feeling the tension like static in the air. A woman kneels at the edge of the platform, her wrists tied, her hair tangled and matted with tears. They say she spoke to spirits, healed the sick, read omens in the stars. But to the church, that meant only one thing: witchcraft. The word hangs in the air like smoke, thick, choking, inescapable. The priest steps forward, his voice booming like thunder. He holds a cross high above the crowd, declaring that evil will be purged today. The villagers cross themselves, whispering prayers they barely understand. Some believe, some pretend, but none dare look away. The smell of burning pitch fills the air as the torches are lit. The condemned woman closes her eyes, and as the flames begin to rise, you feel the heat sting your face. In medieval Europe, faith was a currency of control. It governed the rhythm of life, birth, love, and death, all under the shadow of the church. The peasants prayed for rain, the nobles paid for forgiveness, and the priests stood between heaven and earth as gatekeepers of salvation. Confession was not a choice, it was survival. A wrong word could end a life, a rumor could doom a family.
Inside the stone walls of the monastery, monks bend over candlelight, copying sacred texts onto parchment. Their fingers are stained with ink, their eyes red from sleepless devotion. To them, knowledge is divine, but dangerous. Outside, the world burns heretics for speaking truths that don't fit Scripture. Inside, they hide those same truths in margins too small for priests to see. Books are banned, languages forbidden, but the hunger for knowledge never dies. And yet, even the church is afraid of the unseen, of the unexplained, of anything that doesn't fit within holy order. When lightning strikes a steeple, they call it the devil's work. When illness spreads, they blame the wrath of God. The priests preach purity while the world around them rots in filth. But fear makes believers obedient, and obedience keeps the world in line. In towns across the continent, inquisitors roam like hunters. They carry crosses in one hand and fire in the other. Their mission? To root out heresy wherever it hides. They question peasants, midwives, scholars, anyone who dares to think differently. The trials are cruel theater. Questions with no right answers, confessions dragged out under torture. A scream here, a prayer there, and always the same ending. Flames rising to the heavens as if smoke could carry sin away. But belief in the Middle Ages was not all darkness. Amid the terror, people still found hope. They built cathedrals that touched the clouds, filling them with light and music. Pilgrims walked hundreds of miles to see relics, a saint's bone, a holy shroud, believing that faith could heal what medicine could not. The same faith that burned witches also inspired beauty that still stands centuries later. It was a contradiction only humans could create. You visit one of these cathedrals, its stained glass windows glowing like liquid fire. The sound of the choir fills the air, voices rising and falling like ocean waves. It's breathtaking, humbling, divine. You almost forget the fear outside. For a moment, you understand why people clung to faith. It was the only light in a world so dark. Even when that light burned them, they still reached for it. Outside, however, darkness waits patiently. In a nearby tavern, whispers spread, rumors of men meeting in secret, studying forbidden texts. A new idea is forming, quiet but unstoppable. The idea that truth might exist beyond Scripture, that knowledge might belong to everyone, not just the holy few. It's the first flicker of rebellion, faint as candlelight, but enough to change everything. The church senses the shift like an animal smelling danger on the wind. Its sermons grow louder, its punishments harsher, but the harder it grips, the more people slip through its fingers. The age of unquestioned faith is cracking, though no one yet dares to say it out loud. You can feel it in the air, a trembling undercurrent, a promise that the world is about to change. As night falls, you walk through the village again. The ashes from the day's execution drift through the air like black snow. Somewhere a baby cries. Somewhere else, a man whispers a prayer he doesn't believe in anymore. The fire that burned the witch is still smoldering, but beneath the soot, something else glows quietly. Doubt, fragile and dangerous. And that is how revolutions begin, not with swords or kings, but with questions, with people brave enough to wonder if the truth they were told was ever true at all.
The market of death, medicine, plagues, and the price of survival. The year is 1348. The air itself feels cursed. A foul wind drifts through the cobblestone streets, carrying the scent of rot, sweat, and something far worse, death. You can hear the bell ringing in the distance, the slow toll of warning. Bring out your dead,
someone cries, voice hoarse, echoing between the alley walls. You don't need to ask what's happening. You already know. The plague has arrived. It starts quietly, just a cough, a fever, a few black spots on the skin. But within days, entire families are gone. The towns you once knew become silent graveyards. Doors are marked with crude red crosses, and inside each home lies another story of suffering. The streets are littered with straw and ash, meant to purify the air, though no one truly believes it works. The smell of death seeps through every crack, and yet somehow life goes on. You pass by a man in a long black robe, a mask shaped like a bird's beak covering his face. His eyes are hidden behind glass lenses, his hands wrapped in leather gloves. The people call him a plague doctor, but there's nothing healing about him. The beak of his mask is stuffed with herbs, mint, lavender, vinegar-soaked rags to keep the death away. He carries a long cane, poking at the sick from a distance. It's medicine mixed with superstition, science stitched to fear. In the square, carts rumble by, filled with bodies wrapped in coarse linen. No prayers, no names, no graves, just pits. The church blesses the dead in groups now, a quick wave of a cross over 100 souls. The priests themselves are dying faster than they can pray. The plague doesn't care about faith, wealth, or power. It takes kings and beggars alike, reducing all to the same silence. But even in horror, business thrives. Apothecaries sell miracle cures made of crushed emeralds, rat tails, or snake oil. A vial of blessed water costs more than a family earns in a month. In dimly lit shops, desperate hands trade coins for false hope. The market of death has no shortage of customers. People will buy anything if it promises another sunrise. And yet, for every charlatan, there are those who truly try to heal. Monks grind herbs in stone bowls, whispering prayers over each mixture. Women known as wise healers tend to the sick with poultices and warm cloths. But their kindness often becomes a curse. When a patient recovers, they're called blessed. When one dies, the healer becomes a witch. Fear turns compassion into crime. The doctors, such as they are, rely on strange logic. They bleed their patients to balance the humors, believing that illness is caused by bad blood. They make them drink potions of mercury and ground pearls. Some burn sweet-smelling herbs in the corners of rooms to drive away evil air. It all fails, of course. But in the absence of knowledge, ritual becomes medicine. You step into a tavern one night, hoping for warmth, but find only whispers. A man tells you the plague is punishment from God. Another swears it's carried by foreigners, by traders, by the poor. Someone mentions rats, another curses cats. Everyone has a theory, and all are wrong. The truth is simpler and crueler. It spreads through the very air you breathe, the touch of a friend, a shared loaf of bread. By the second month, even the gravediggers are gone. The city stinks of decay. Dogs and crows feast openly on the unburied. Fires burn day and night to cleanse the streets, though they do little more than turn the air black. Families lock themselves inside their homes, praying the wind pass them by. Some turn to God with trembling hands. Others turn away, convinced that heaven has abandoned them. And yet, amid the despair, something strange happens. Humanity endures. People sing from their windows, calling out to one another in the dark. Lovers sneak through alleyways to hold hands despite the danger. Mothers whisper stories to their children as if words could keep death outside.
Hope becomes rebellion, a small defiance against the plague that wants to erase everything. You meet a monk named Thomas, his robe tattered, his eyes hollow but kind. He tells you that the disease has taught him something, that the soul of a man cannot be cured by prayer alone, nor destroyed by pain. Suffering, he says softly, is the mirror that shows us what we are. And then he turns away, vanishing into the fog, another shadow in a world of ghosts. Months pass, the streets empty. The plague has taken half the city, maybe more. You stand on a hill one morning and watch the sunrise bleed through the smoke. Below you, the world lies still, fragile, silent. And in that moment, you understand. The Middle Ages were not an age of ignorance. They were an age of survival. People did not live, they endured. The bell rings again. Bring out your dead. But this time, the sound feels different, more like a prayer, a promise that even in the darkest time, the world still breathes. The market of death may never close, but as long as one person refuses to give up, life will always find a way to bargain with it.
The feast and the famine, how the poor survived and the rich indulged. The scent hits you first, roasted boar, spiced wine, and honey-glazed bread fresh from the royal kitchens. Inside the castle walls, torches burn bright against stone, casting golden light over velvet-draped tables. Laughter fills the hall, the kind that echoes off marble and makes hunger seem like a myth. You can almost forget that just beyond those same walls, people are starving. Almost. At the king's table, plates overflow with meats and fruits that peasants will never see in their lives. Swans roasted whole, pies stuffed with dates and figs, goblets overflowing with red wine thick as blood. Music drifts through the air as dancers twirl in silken gowns. A jester tumbles near the hearth, his laughter masking exhaustion. For the nobility, the Middle Ages were an endless banquet, and for everyone else, it was famine disguised as fate. Outside the castle, the world tells another story. The fields are frozen, the barns empty, and bellies groan louder than church bells. A mother boils weeds and bark into something she dares to call soup. A child chews on a piece of hard bread that could break a tooth. To be poor in medieval Europe wasn't just about having less, it was about being invisible. The lords feasted and the peasants disappeared behind their hunger. The nobles liked to call themselves generous. They claimed to care for their people, but their charity came in crumbs, leftover bread tossed from banquet tables, bones given to beggars as blessings. Even the church preached that poverty was holy, that suffering brought you closer to God. Yet somehow, the priests' tables were always full. You walk through a marketplace at dusk. The smell of roasted onions and ale mixes with the stench of waste. Merchants shout about prices while thieves weave through the crowd like shadows. A few copper coins could buy a loaf of bread, or they could buy your life if you chose wrong. The people trade in desperation, shoes for food, blankets for hope. Hunger is the great equalizer, but not everyone feels it the same way. In the lower quarter, you find a tavern packed with laughter, smoke, and sorrow. Men drink to forget their empty fields. Women sing to drown their fear. A bard in the corner strums a broken lute, singing of kings and glory while the audience clings to every word. For a few hours, the poor pretend they belong to that golden world of feasts and comfort, and maybe that illusion is the only thing that keeps them alive. Meanwhile, in the great halls above, dinner is theater. The nobles compete to outshine one another with dishes no one can pronounce. A roasted peacock, feathers reattached for decoration. A pie that burst open to release live doves. Bread dyed with saffron so bright it looks like sunlight itself. Every bite is excess, every swallow a statement of power. They don't eat to survive, they eat to be seen. But the more they feast, the more distant they become from the world outside their walls. The king toasts to victory in wars his peasants die in. The lords argue about taxes that will never touch their gold-lined tables. In the flicker of candlelight, the divide between rich and poor becomes an abyss. And when famine truly strikes, that abyss swallows entire generations. You hear stories of villages abandoned after harsh winters, of children sold for bread, of mothers burying their last child and whispering prayers to a God who no longer answers. And yet, somehow, they endure. Peasants learn to survive on what the earth grudgingly gives. They bake bread with ground acorns, make stew from nettles and hope. They barter, share, steal, and forgive. Their strength is not in wealth, but in persistence. One night, a storm rages outside as you pass through a noble's feast. Lightning flashes through stained glass, thunder rattles the silverware. But inside, the lords barely notice. They laugh, drunk on their own comfort. You realize something chilling. These people aren't evil, they're just blind. They've lived so long surrounded by abundance that they've forgotten what hunger feels like. And when you forget hunger, you forget humanity. In the corner of the hall, a servant girl slips a piece of bread into her apron, hoping no one sees. You catch her eye for a moment. There's fear there, and something else. Defiance. She will bring that bread home to her brother, even if it costs her a whipping. And in that small, silent act, she becomes more noble than anyone sitting at the king's table. Days later, the feast ends. The leftovers, mountains of them, are thrown into ditches or fed to the dogs. The nobles move on to their next celebration, their next reason to forget. But for the people outside, the hunger never ends. It becomes a part of their bones, their prayers, their stories. Children grow up learning that survival is not about abundance. It's about endurance. And yet, history remembers the kings, the nobles, the endless banquets. The peasants remain unnamed, their hunger swallowed by time. But listen closely, and you can still hear them. The crack of frozen soil under bare feet, the soft sound of prayer over an empty bowl. They are the heartbeat of a world that pretended not to hear them. So the next time you see a painting of a medieval feast, look past the gold and the laughter. Imagine the silence outside those castle walls, the wind howling through an empty field, the stomachs that growled through the night. Because the Middle Ages weren't just built by kings, they were endured by those who had nothing and somehow survived anyway.
The law, the hangman, and the edge of justice. The crowd gathers long before dawn. Mist curls low over the square, wrapping around the wooden scaffold like a ghost refusing to leave. You can hear murmurs rising through the fog, voices of merchants, mothers, children, all waiting to see what justice looks like in the medieval world. It smells of damp earth and fear. A man in chains kneels at the center, eyes hollow, lips trembling a silent prayer. The hangman waits beside him, faceless beneath his hood, the rope coiled like a serpent in his hands. Justice in this world isn't about truth, it's about spectacle. Medieval law was never blind. It had its eyes wide open, fixed on power. If you were noble, your crimes were forgiven with gold and confession. If you were poor, your crimes were remembered with blood. The same theft that earned a nobleman a fine could hang a peasant from the gallows. And yet the people came to watch, as if witnessing punishment made them safe. In the heart of every medieval town stood not a monument, but a scaffold. It was a stage where morality performed its cruelest plays. Accusations of witchcraft, heresy, or theft often ended not in a courtroom, but here, under the cold eye of God and the hungry eyes of men. The crowd didn't come for truth. They came for certainty. They wanted to see the world divided neatly, innocent and guilty, good and evil, saved and damned. But life was never that simple. A hungry boy stealing bread was a thief. A starving woman accused of witchcraft was a monster. And a lord who took lives in war was a hero. The line between justice and cruelty blurred. until no one could tell where one ended and the other began. Imagine standing there, among the crowd. You can feel the tension in the air as the priest reads his final prayer. The condemned man looks up at the gray sky, perhaps searching for mercy. But mercy was a luxury reserved for the powerful. The hangman pulls the lever, and the world goes silent for one breathless moment. Then the crowd exhales, satisfied. Justice has been served, or so they believe. Yet justice in the Middle Ages had many faces. Some wore the robes of the church, preaching salvation while burning heretics alive. Others wore crowns, declaring wars in the name of God. The torture chambers beneath castles told their own sermons, confession through agony, truth through pain. The rack, the Iron Maiden, the wheel, all instruments of divine correction. And still, people believed in the righteousness of it all. They believed that suffering purified the soul, that pain was the path to salvation. Even the condemned often accepted their fate, whispering prayers for forgiveness moments before death. Fear ruled the land, and faith made it holy. One afternoon, you pass through a small village where a trial is underway. The accused is a young woman, her face pale but proud. Someone whispered she spoke to the wind, that her crops grew too well, that her eyes glowed in moonlight. The villagers believe she's a witch. The priest asks her to confess, to save her soul. She refuses. They call her defiant. The next morning, her ashes scatter in the same fields she once tended. Stories like hers were countless. Witches, heretics, rebels, anyone who questioned power became the enemy of order. And every execution was both punishment and performance, reminding everyone else what happened when you disobeyed. Fear was the truest law of the Middle Ages. But not all justice came from gallows and fire. Some came from whispers, from revenge carried in silence. A servant who poisoned a cruel master, a wife who vanished with a thief into the forest, a monk who wrote forbidden truths in candlelight. Justice found its own paths, hidden and human. As centuries passed, the scaffold rotted away, the hangman's rope turned to dust. Laws changed, kingdoms fell, but the questions remained. What is justice without mercy? What is law without compassion? The Middle Ages ended, but the shadow of its judgment still lingers. In prisons, in wars, in the quiet moments when we decide who deserves forgiveness and who does not. You walk away from the square as the sun sets. The crowd disperses, their thrill fading into memory, but the echo of the hangman's rope stays with you. It's the sound of a world learning, painfully slowly, that justice built on fear can never last. And maybe that's the final truth of the Middle Ages. It wasn't just about kings and castles, about plagues and wars. It was about people trying to understand right and wrong in a time when survival left little room for kindness. A world both cruel and fragile, brutal yet beautiful in its belief that every act, no matter how dark, had meaning. Centuries later, we look back at those times with fascination and horror. We romanticize the knights, the ballads, the torch-lit feasts, but beneath it all, the Middle Ages were a mirror, reflecting the best and worst of humanity. Their world was simpler, yet far more unforgiving. As the night deepens, the fog rises again over the empty square. The scaffold is gone now, replaced by cobblestones and silence. But if you listen closely, you can almost hear it. The faint creak of the rope, the prayer whispered by the condemned, the breath of a crowd seeking justice in the only way they knew it. The Middle Ages may have ended, but their shadows still walk beside us. And maybe that's the greatest lesson of all. Every age believes it has found justice, until the future looks back and calls it cruelty.